Isn't that fantastic? Ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Australian Air Force roulettes fly overhead. Your commentators for 2018 are Peter Anderson, Grant McHerron and Tony Mountclair. Ando, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Coordination and looking at the aircraft in front to get the cues off that to fly that precise formation position. You see now they're pulling in for a loop in wedge formation. They'll come for a fly pass from the left. They're getting the loop. The pilots are pulling about 4G. Throughout the display, they'll be getting up to speeds of 550 kilometres an hour and flying at 250 feet above the ground. As I said before, at the front is Squadron Leader Jay Tuffley. He's roulette 1. He's got over 4,500 military flying hours. He joined the Air Force in 2003 and was a former P3 maritime. As you see, they're narrowing to the right, positioning into swift formation. Now, to combat those Gs that they're experiencing during the display, they actually wear a special G suit, which is another pair of pants you wear over the top of your flight suit. And when you pull G, it pumps air into your legs and your stomach. He sailed down in Victoria. They've all got over 3,000 flying hours and are highly experienced military flying instructors. Now, during the display, Roulette 1 will call out specific commands to the pilots to let them know what's coming up for the rest of the manoeuvre. And the inside of the PC-9 flying 3 metres apart from each other with Roulette 5 inverted. Roulette 6 for this season is Flight Lieutenant Alistair Berryman. He's a former 707 pilot. He's been an instructor on the CT4 and PC-9 aircraft for a number of years now. They are 5G pull up here, so he's straining quite hard to maintain consciousness as he pulls up into the vertical. Now, I went up for a practice the other day in this manoeuvre and it's uncomfortable as it looks to fly. As he comes down, he's going to do a 6G descending turn. Oh, he's mixed it up a bit there. He did a vertical roll on the way down.
I reckon we're about a minute away, Ando.
Yep, just seeing, look at that glint there. You can just see it off the aircraft.
Can I see when the sun comes in? They're there.
Get your cameras ready, ladies and gentlemen.
This camera. Let's stop the video very quickly.
There they are, ladies and gentlemen, the RAAF's Hornet.
Sound catches up.
We're lucky to have one with a celebration tail or a...
Yes, celebration tail.
The 2 OCU.
2 OCU up there, 75 years, operating out of Williamtown. A lot of people think that Williamtown is a modern base. It was actually operational during the Second World War.
And it's had a lot the engine would probably be at a higher thrust setting, wouldn't it, because of all that drag?
Yeah, there's a lot of computer work going on in there as well. When you see the aircraft when they start up from zero, fitted with a glass cockpit, and it has a multi-mode radar and identification friend-foe interrogator. Has low frequency dipping sonar as well, and sonar buoys, and the UH-90, which we have an example of over there in front of the display hangar. 816 Squadron and also number 725 Squadron for training. That's the Royal Australian Navy Fleet Firearm down at HMAS Albatross.
Which is an all-rotary air wing, I believe.
Yes, correct. We don't have any fixed-wing components in the Navy anymore. We got rid of the Skyhawks. They went over to New Zealand. They took advantage of that.
Who could blame them?
Absolutely.
And, well, they live on now as similar air combat trainers in the United States.
That's right. Some of them still carry their Kiwi mission. It might not be a threat environment. It could be flood or disaster relief or humanitarian relief as well. So, as I said, they're not just there to fight. They are there to assist as well, and that is one of the great roles that the RAAF and the Navy and the Army take on, particularly with all of the disasters that have happened around in our region. As you say, it's the nephew or the cousin of the Black Hawk helicopter.
Just a point on that, I saw an Iroquois helicopter over there, Rando, and
Tactical transport, the Alania C-27J Spartan, taking over from the very venerable Caribou.
big shoes to fill, there's no doubt about that.
And filling them very, very well with 35 Squadron there. Flown today by Squadron Leader Mark Seary. He joined the ADF in about 2004, went to ADFA and studied fuselage. It's wider and it can carry our Mercedes G-Wagon and palletised goods as well, so it makes it a lot easier. This is not just a party trick, this is a very practical application of the capabilities of the aircraft, where it can actually manoeuvre into very tight places. They might have to go into very, very small, rough, ill-prepared fields, not like this magnificent airfield we've got down here at wings over the Illawarra.
Like surface-to-air missiles, got to be very aware of its surroundings, as you said, Ando, and it's operating at the pointy end of the battle.
As I said, the Americans, of course, Connor.
Largest aircraft ever operated by
You've
them.
got four 40,000-pound thrust Pratt & Whitney engines there out on the wings. It is certainly the rear ramp is down there. If you ever get the opportunity when one of these aircraft is on static to some paratroops, and it is unbelievable to see the number of paratroops that actually come out of these things in a mass drop. They look like Arnhem or D-Day.
I think he runs with the whole expect nothing and
Very level-headed.
Of course, with the US Air Force, with that Air Mobility Command, Air Material Command, the Pacific Air Forces, the Air Force Reserve, and also with the US Air National Guard, which...
There's just no better sound.
Radial engines, the sound of round. The design of this aircraft incredibly goes back to January 1937. Particular aircraft, the Hudson and the P-38.
There's a lot to be said for that, but I'm sure the romantic in all of us does like evocative names like Merlin or Griffin.
for the construction of these was kicked off. They'd only sold about 29 of them before the war broke out. The nationalist Chinese purchased some that had been converted over. These guys fly together all the time as part of Paul Bennett air shows. Was all red, and basically any aircraft that spotted red on it was shot at, either air-to-air or ground-to-air, because of the potential in the very early days. Anything that was flying was Japanese pretty much, and they also developed another marking as well. They had white leading edges and a white tail on single-engined aircraft like the Aerocobra, the Thunderbolt, Spitfires. The RAAF Spitfires even carried that. Wirraway being flown today by Glenn Collins.
And ordered as an advanced trainer for the Royal Australian Air Force.
But came out of this machine. Now this North American aviation, quite rightly so, said never to have built a bad aircraft. They actually started off in the late 20s, not building aeroplanes at all, but they were a holding company for US Airlines, basically like the financiers. 1934 they started, disappeared, and they became the T6, or the training aircraft Model 6. Over 15,000 of these produced, and these were the pilot maker for the United States military during the Second World War.
So the US Navy flew them as well?
Nothing advanced. So what they did is they formed the Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation. They started to build a factory there at Fisherman's Bend on the Yarra River, which is right next to where the Westgate Bridge is these days. They sent a team overseas, and they went to Britain, and the Brits decided to offer basically obsolete types, except for the Westland Lycee in 1939, and it equipped a number of squadrons before the war broke out. You can see the aircraft. It has fabric-covered sides. Now, this is identical to what the Harvard Mark I looked like. Fabric-covered sides over a steel tube fuselage frame. One important difference between the two types is, as this represents the early NA-16, it didn't have any washout on the wings. And that was very important because at low speed, the wings tend to stall. And that's not the engine running out of power, it is stopping to produce lift. And that was very advanced trainer, and also was later used as a dive bomber, ground attack aircraft.
The Trojan being the white one?
That's correct, and the other one being designed from the outset as a torpedo bomber. It could also be used for diving. Beautiful sound of round, and the T-28 sounding, as has been described, like a Harley Davidson on steroids. Configuration. First flew in August 41, but was displayed to the public for the very first time on a very particularly historical day, the 7th of December 1941. Displayed, they fitted the aircraft with the 1425 horsepower Wright Cyclone. That's an 1820 cubic inches in 9 cylinders. So if you do the math, each one of those cylinders is a lot bigger than a lot of motor vehicle engines right now. In that first version with the bigger engine was the B model, and this is one of those. The aircraft is actually fitted with an air brake underneath the fuselage, used by the US Navy and the US Marines.
I believe the US Navy version, which was operated off carriers for training, had a...
Flying the T-28.
Now I'm going to hold you to something, and you mentioned that it was operated by the Kiwis, by the Americans obviously, by the RAF, who shot down a V-1 German rocket in it. But at the end of the war, it found a user that you might find quite ironic. It was an incredibly successful anti-submarine aircraft as well. It sank 35 U-boats, but it was the scourge of the Japanese in the Pacific, this aircraft.
And quite ironic, it was flown by the Canadians as an anti-submarine aircraft, flown by the French as well, Brazil, Uruguay and the Netherlands. But users were the Japanese. First operated at Midway in 1942. There were only 6 of these aircraft there, but they were credited with pulling away. Of course, as you said, towards the end of the war, the super battleships, the Musashi and the Yamato. 1900 horsepower, twin-row Wright engine, same engine that's fitted with the B-25. 2 forward-firing 50 caliber machine guns, a 2,000 pound Mark 13 torpedo or 2,000 pounds of bombs, a 30 caliber machine gun in the turret behind that big glass house, and also have a look under the fuselage where that notch is, where the bomb bay doors are right open now. You can put a 30 caliber machine gun in there.
Which I'm sure surprised a few Japanese fighter pilots.
Most definitely.
Famously flown by an ex-US president.
That very distinctive caribou sound accompanying that. Originally produced with wood for the VVS or the Russian Air Force. And you can see what those wingtip vortices are actually doing to that smoke system, how it's creating individual smoke rings. It's quite incredible if you look at how that's swirling up there and just see how they break and join again.
Good roll rate with a
Very good.
shorter wingspan, which explains the performance under 10,000 feet.
Yep, and they was actually fitted post-war with this big Ash 82 engine. Because the engine can develop all sorts of different horsepower. So the Ash 82, anywhere between 1900 and about 2,400 horsepower. This engine is aircraft has a number of international records, both time to climb. Absolutely, and I doubt very much that you get any caribou pilot talking about its scintillating performance.
Or time to climb records.
Definitely not. Beautifully flown by James.
But you don't see them on fighter aircraft like the Hornet. We see a wingtip missile rail for a sidewinder there.
Probably a better use for a fighter wingtip. History of these very famous warbirds. Same time they needed to build the Curtiss P-40. Look at that. Look at that huge wing on the Hurricane.
They were given 3 months. $120 days.
North American Mustang.
Described as the most aerodynamically perfect fighter aircraft of World War II. Would you agree with that assessment, Eda?
Certainly. When the British Air Purchasing Commission went over to the United States, as did the French, to get aircraft for their air forces because they knew what was coming. They said to North American Aviation, we want you to build the P-40, but Dutch Kindelberger said to them, I can build you a better aeroplane in the same time. So they set about this laminar flow.
Of course, the only downside of that is its vulnerability to
There
ground.
it's going. Just under 17,000 of these. We built 200 of them here. We were the only other country apart from the United States to manufacture the Mustang, and it's changed direction 180 degrees since this morning. Look at that beautiful elliptical wing there, the instant recognition feature for the Spitfire. DFC, Polish Cross of Valor. And it is carrying his individual Martyr group. They were the first of the Allied aircraft to carry this shark mouth. When they were not told to get them off, became bigger and bigger and bigger until you have this fearsome mouth that was flown on the Australian Spitfires. A lot of people say no, it never had curved approach. And of course now the Hurricane coming in from the right. Look at the wing, totally different. Very thick, very large wing. Originally designed to carry 12 machine guns.
It was a very stable gun platform, and unlike this one.
Exactly the same type of construction of the fuselage. It was steel tube fuselage, but it wasn't welded. You had these stainless steel gusset plates in the piece just after the war was declared.
Also employed as a night fighter by the RAF early on in the war, and were used by the Russians.
Severely damaged another 65, but of the 452 that went over, only 60 odd returned. This aircraft was produced from 1955 to 1976. It wasn't retired until 1993. Quite a number of these aircraft now came out to Australia, including a number that have flown at RAF Granville. Jet promised out that aircraft is one of the great useful tests down at the Rack Museum in Point Cook. The T5, introduced in 1967, they were T5 and the T5A, they were actually pressurised versions, and the later 5A having improved avionics.
Back to ground centre. As it comes past, it'll be descending down to approximately 200 feet for this low pass. Position back to rail line. Pushing a bit of gear. Aircraft will be flying during the training.
It's far bigger than that of the American. Wing where it sits on the fuselage and the wingtip were bigger. Jeff just couldn't hold it now. When it first went into service, or just before it went into service, they were having trouble with the cannons because when they fired the cannons...
Just too late for Korea?
They first flew in August 1953. The Canadians built a more powerful version of the Canada.
Trails are now coming through, position 320 knots, 200 feet, maximum weight to
F-22 captain. Again, extending out, and Matt's now in a position for a square loop in front of the crab. So we've seen other aircraft fly loops today, the traditional egg-shaped type loop in the case of a square.